I'm privileged to introduce to you Marlena Sessions, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Workforce Development Council of Seattle and King County. Marlena's guiding focus for the WDC is impact, having the greatest impact on the success of the economy, job seekers, employers, and youth of Seattle-King County. She also believes in sharing expertise with other areas to make an impact on workforce development nationally. I'm on the board of the Workforce Development Council, and I know how proud I am of the great work of the WDC, but it's not just me and my fellow board members. In February of 2011, the AFL-CIO's Working for America Institute named the Workforce Development Council of Seattle and King County the top 4 workforce boards in the country. And in large measure, that's because of the leadership of Marlena Sessions. We're very fortunate to have her here today to share with us her expertise. Marlena?
Thank you, Jeff, and it's now my pleasure to introduce Jeff Marcell and his organization. Jeff is the President and Chief Executive Officer of Enterprise Seattle. Jeff joined Enterprise Seattle in 2004, and since that time has assisted 45 companies that have created or retained close to 4,500 primary jobs in this community, with an estimated impact to the local economy of close to 8,800 jobs and $1.45 billion in the new economic activity. Jeff holds a Juris Doctor from the South Texas College of Law and a Bachelor of Arts degree in Political Science from the University of Illinois at Chicago. He's an active member of the Workforce Development Council of Seattle-King County's board, as well as the vice chair of the Washington Economic Development Association, to name just 2 of Jeff's active local leadership impact areas. Enterprise Seattle, Jeff's organization, is King County's 40-year-old public-private partnership for economic development with the mission to recruit, retain, and expand business and investment into King County, growing our jobs and tax base in this community. It accomplishes its mission through a customized client services program focused on business retention, expansion, recruitment, and creation. The organization provides a unique set of services tailored to specific needs of its clients, provided at no cost, and focused on business growth and development, leading to job creation. Enterprise Seattle is also the Washington State's designated area development organization representing King County and serves as our primary partner for the state in local economic development activities. It's funded through a combination of public and private investment, and the organization provides one-on-one confidential consulting services free of charge to businesses seeking to establish, expand, or relocate to King County. So it's our pleasure to talk to you today about the partnership of the Workforce Development Council and Enterprise Seattle and how economic development and workforce development really do work well together. I'm going to start by talking about what I would call our relationship, both the background in terms of a more formal sense of the partnership and certainly the way the informal partnership works well as well. So in terms of that formal partnership, we are very much interested in each other's board membership, and we each share board member and executive committee seats on each other's board. Jeff is actually on my industry demand committee at the Workforce Development Council and holds a leadership position there as vice chair. We talk about and then we actually do things. We do grant execution and project partnerships. We have a lot of integrated service delivery to client companies. What ends up happening often with economic development is if we have the human capital on the workforce development side, it attracts and retains those same businesses that Jeff's company is able to get to come to King County or to stay in Seattle and King County. So our responsibility as a Workforce Development Council is make sure we've got that capital ready to go. The informal partnership is probably equally as important, I would say, and that's simply information sharing on a very regular, ongoing basis. So that can happen because we happen to see each other in the community a lot and do these kinds of presentations quite a bit together. But it also happens because we calendar our time together to make sure that we are regularly meeting for lunch to brainstorm, to plan our next activities as a joint partnership. And that's just as important in terms of informal sharing in real time as things develop as it is the formal partnership. And we're certainly, without question, champions for each other's missions and organizations. We totally understand the fact that if we don't have good economic development in this area, workforce development doesn't stand a chance, and vice versa. And so we're very much interested in a sincere way of championing each other's organizations. Thank you. We also have learned through trial and error and mostly success, I would say, that it's very important to dive pretty deep into the local economy and make sure that we know what the next best opportunity is, what the next big thing is, what the next small thing is for that matter, in terms of niche opportunities and economic development. So we're constantly looking at ways to perhaps co-sponsor events, which we've done recently. The WDC was a supporting sponsor of Enterprise Seattle's very successful Economic Forecast Conference and its Power of Play event for interactive media professionals and employers. We take those event sponsorships seriously, not because they're just another event, but because of the outcomes that come from those in terms of real impact and real activity. We jointly present, as I mentioned. For example, the WDC and Enterprise Seattle were co-presenters at the Greater Seattle Chamber of Commerce's first annual business forum, at which the Chamber unveiled the results of its survey of 1,200 employers on their challenges, opportunities, and plans for hiring. We've now been asked to re-up for a second year, and that survey is being expanded to a regional outlook as well.
And so I'm going to share with you an opportunity that presented itself for a deeper collaboration between our two organizations. Both the Workforce Development Council and Enterprise Seattle have worked with specific industries and assisted specific industries for many, many years. The Workforce Development Council has a rich history of success in working with industry panels. Enterprise Seattle has worked with industry clusters for many years as well. Back in 2004, we conducted a biotechnology study analyzing the industry for the state of Washington. So we both have a long history of working with specific industries. Just a few years ago, our four-county region came together to collectively create an economic development strategy. And this strategy was known as the Prosperity Partnership. This economic development strategy is targeted specific industry clusters. And in many ways, the greatest success of the strategy was first educating the region about the importance of our local economy and making sure that we always have to make sure we're nurturing our economy and cannot take success for granted. In addition, the second success of this strategy, I believe, is that it introduced the concept of industry clusters into our region and the significance that those industry clusters play to the success of our economy. Let me share some background with you about the Prosperity Partnership. It's a coalition of more than 300 businesses, governments, nonprofits, labor, and educational organizations working together to implement a comprehensive economic development strategy for the Puget Sound region focused on specific industry clusters with opportunity for strong growth in our community. The industry clusters that were targeted were aerospace, information technology, life science, clean technology, international trade and logistics, military, and tourism. And you can see from this slide, this is provides a graphic illustration of the economic development strategy. And as you can see, it's a two-pronged approach. One focus is on the 7 leading industry clusters that I just outlined. And the second prong is the focus on the foundations of our economy that are necessary for the success of those industry clusters. The paths for implementation of this strategy really were twofold. One was public policy work, and there was a significant amount of public policy work identifying legislative issues and advocating for legislative issues focused on higher education, transportation, taxation issues. And then the second path was the actual work of working individually with these industry clusters and trying to find ways to help them succeed day in and day out. The Workforce Development Council and Enterprise Seattle largely led the efforts of implementing this second path for our county. And we soon realized that while the data that had been gathered for the regional strategy was helpful in understanding general trends in the global economy, as well as concentrations of companies and workforce skills in broad categories for our region, the definitions of the industry clusters, though, were far too broad to help us understand our niche concentrations in these industry clusters and where our unique value proposition was for these industry clusters. And let me share an example. The industry cluster defined as life science really has several components, one being biotechnology, one pharma, the other another medical device, one global health, and many other areas that are composed of the life science category. And it's important to understand the concentrations in each one of these because they have different factors for success. In addition, while the regional information was valuable from the regional economic development strategy, it was incredibly valuable for public policy decisions. And the challenge, though, was that much of the information that was gathered was not necessarily created so that for the benefit of companies, so that they could understand more about what was happening in the region. It was more designed towards public policy issues. For example, the amount of revenue for different industries, for the ability of companies to be profitable here, for the cost of doing business here, really wasn't analyzed. And lastly, the organizations, as the organizations that are the ultimate implementers of the one-on-one strategy, it was critical that our organizations be actively engaged in reaching out and understanding what was going on in the local industries, rather than just purchasing a report from a consultant. That helped us build credibility with the region, and you'll hear more about that later.